For 50 years, this dairy was where Sallie Jones's dad, Michael Bowen, milked his beloved Jerseys and created pioneering businesses. In the mid-80s, he built a factory to bottle Jersey milk and make ice cream. Nearing 60, and with his 3 daughters away pursuing their careers, he sold the cows, leased the land and shut the dairy.
And that was the start of a 3-year journey for us as a family, with him battling depression and psychosis. So he was no longer a dairy farmer, he was no longer a manufacturer or businessman. His identity had gone.
Mr. Bowen suicided in 2016.
He was in so much pain that he thought he was doing us a favour for not being around.
The Avondale Murray Goulburn slashed the price it pays milk producers who are already struggling with unseasonably dry conditions.
Around the same time, Murray Goulburn informed shocked dairy farmers they'd been overpaid and owed the company tens of thousands of dollars. While Sallie's family wasn't affected, her friend Steve Ronalds was. He'd been weighing up his future in dairy before the crisis. But then Murray Goulburn told him he owed $80,000.
The fear in the industry was just horrible. So I guess it's that pressure and that tension from all these different angles coming through. That was probably the tipping point.
Steve wanted independence from big processors and suggested to Sallie a way to honour her dad would be if they started a dairy business. And Gippsland Jersey was born.
When he died, I think I just needed to put that grief and whatever into creating something positive.
It was daunting and probably exciting and just a bit of desperation. Well, here's the last hurrah. Let's give it our best shot.
Steve's 400 jerseys provided the milk for the first bottling run. Disillusioned with big milk, they set 3 core values for their business.
One is that farmers have to be paid a fair price because the dairy crisis was going on right then and there. And I also knew that, you know, Dad always had a voice for farmers. The second one is around creating social change in rural mental health. And that pillar is personal for me because I believe that, you know, we are losing people in rural communities. And if we can have a little bit of, play a little role in creating some change, then that's great. And the third one is kindness.
Steve says it's about more than making money.
That's not what drives us. Within us, there's something deeper in there that just we just want to make a difference. And yep, we can't make a difference unless we're profitable.
The first farmers who signed on were paid a 25 to 30% premium for their milk. Gippsland Dairy still pays more for milk than the big processors.
I think most other companies would do market research and say, well, this is what we think the consumer will pay. This is going to cost all this. Oh, this is what's left for the farmer. Not cool at all. So, you know, we don't think that's an acceptable way to do business.
The old factory belonging to Sallie's dad was renovated through crowdfunding and donated labour. Now 50,000 litres from 4 suppliers is bottled, turned into butter, buttermilk and creme fraiche every week.
We've had 70% year-on-year growth up until last year. The growth has slowed down, but we're consolidating and we're in Coles and Woolies. I'm really proud and I'm really thankful to the people that choose to buy our milk because they're choosing to support something greater than just the milk.
And that is to move the dial on mental health, especially within the farming community.
Because it was only about 6 months after Dad died and I had a moment in the shower where I thought, it's about storytelling.
In 2017, Sallie used her storytelling and marketing skills to produce a calendar profiling 12 farmers.
The first calendar we did was pretty raw. All the stories were pretty intense, and probably most of them had the word suicide in them. Yeah, I don't think all did, but most did. And that was a word that wasn't really used, you know, I think 7 years ago.
I know that these are the stories and the people that my dad would have loved to have known and to have read about. And yeah, every time I meet them, in the back of my mind, I think, yeah, Dad would get along well with you. He would have loved to have come out to your farm.
Now, is this where the world gets to meet Joe?
Yes.
Here's Joe. This is the first. Mr. September in that first calendar was Joe Mighetto. He'd been dogged by depression for years.
There was a lot of crying, there was a lot of hair pulling, and there's a lot of soul searching inside a tractor by yourself, wondering, you know, how am I going to get out of all this? So it was tough times. There's a lot of negative thoughts, that's for sure.
Too embarrassed to see his doctor and worried what his mates would think, Joe kept it to himself for 10 years until in 1995 his brother asked what was wrong.
And I just pulled out this bullet and said to him, I'm going to use this on me one day. And then we spoke a bit more, and then we parted, and then within 20 minutes I had the cows at the shed, and the police turned up at the milking shed.
Joe has since got the help he needed, and when Sallie called to ask him to be in a calendar, his only worry was it was a nude calendar.
Was it a relief to pick up the calendar and go, I said it out loud, friends, family, everyone knows?
Yeah, it was. It was like a big burden off your shoulders. You think, people know now.
Sallie's just launched the 6th calendar, and helping out was Joe.
You know, 7 years ago, we hardly spoke about mental health. So I was embarrassed. I don't want my mates to know that I'm suffering, I want to commit suicide.
Joe happily takes calls from troubled farmers and says talking publicly helps.
But bloody hell, right here today, you think, you don't know who's suffering. But I really hope one day that you struggle to find 12 people, because we're all on the bloody path of, you know, recovery, and we're all, you know, a lot better, but...
And we've now covered off 72 stories, which I think is nearly 10% of Gippsland's dairy farms. It's been an amazing journey, and I think for me to be here, back in the factory that Dad built, it's full circle. And yeah, he'd be so proud.
Sallie takes a film crew to every farm to produce videos of the participants. Many are often opening up for the first time. The videos go on the business's website.
He didn't know what was wrong. Like, I kept asking him what's wrong, and he goes, I don't know. I don't know why I'm like this. I don't know.
Probably the way I've probably coped is by talking to people that I know have probably experienced the same or similar thing. Like,
I'm going to cry. Hopefully they can get onto it a lot quicker and get them help and stuff like that. So hopefully good things will come out of it.
So this was all underwater, right through those sheds. During and after the flood in 2007, I was just completely physically and emotionally exhausted. I was in a place where I didn't know how to cope.
It's our connectedness and our ability to be held by our community and to really deeply belong in our community that makes us resilient in floods and fires and droughts. And this work helps us feel more deeply connected in a really emotional way. Like, it's pretty raw today, and it's pretty raw to stand up and say, yep, I've had, you know, troubles with wanting to stay here. And yeah, so I think Sallie's, what she's doing is a gift.
The bulk of the calendar funding comes from Gippsland Lakes Complete Health. It's proved a timely and effective investment.
This community has reeled from drought to fire to flood. We've had landslip, earthquake, just the pressure of living on the land and trying to make your living from farming is relentless. They're an incredibly resilient, but at the same time exhausted, I think, community. Honestly, if the calendar creates one conversation that prevents a suicide, that's been a resounding success, but I reckon it's doing a whole lot more than that, hundreds of conversations.
Sallie has a knack for convincing farmers presumed to be unlikely to have mental health issues to talk. The tough nuts, the jokers, the outwardly happy, and the intensely private. That local football captain Royston Doc Nettleton had issues with the black dog shocked many in his community. Sallie says Doc and others' openness has changed lives and in some cases saved them.
I think the hardest thing is just saying yes for a start, and that's the same as when you try to seek help. I think, especially for myself, the hardest thing was booking the appointment.
The calendar's a clever way to reach farmers, as they have a long life, hanging in kitchens, offices and dairies all year. And there's a list of support services on the back page. Doc reckons, sadly, the need for a calendar isn't going away.
It seems to be getting worse. I don't know why, but just the pressures of life, I suppose, and the whole mind's a funny thing.
Mental health is so tricky. I'm not saying it's easy. The world is going at such a crazy pace, and it's all of our responsibility to look after each other.
Bit of a surprise that she does keep finding them, but she works hard at it and is passionate about it, and which is great to see. And obviously, you've only got to save one person's life, and she's done a job.
If this story has raised issues for you or someone you know, you can call Lifeline on 13 11 14 anytime.